students, today's agenda is to check homework. We'll be learning about the inverse trigonometric ratios, and you will be able to work on 6.5. Today, students will be able to use the inverse trigonometric ratios to find an angle. And so we're going to continue to use SOHCAHTOA, SOHCAHTOA, SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA, SOHCAHTOA, SOHCAHTOA. But we're going to be using the inverse of sine, cosine, and tangent. Okay, so in here, we're looking at an angle, but now we don't have the measurement of that angle. And we still need to see what information do we have. Oh, we have the opposite. Oh, so it might be this one or this one. And we have the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is always straight in front of or opposite of the 90-degree angle and is the longest side. So opposite and hypotenuse, that means that I'm going to be using sine. So sine of theta is equals to opposite over hypotenuse. And so I'm going to put sine of x, which is the angle that we're looking for, is opposite, which is 4, over hypotenuse, which is 5. We're gonna find this ratio in our calculator, and I know we can use, but it gets a little bit more complex when we use the fraction itself. So I'm just gonna ask you to divide this 4 divided by 5 equals 0.8. And so that's what we're gonna be using, okay? The ratio in decimal form. If you get non-repeating decimals, I will ask you to use at least 4 or more decimal places. So this is how you're going to do it. You're going to put the inverse of sine, which is -1, just to write it, and I'll explain in the calculator how to do it. The inverse of sine, instead of x, I'm going to put times the ratio in here that I found. So replace this with x, and that's going to give you equal to the answer of x, the degrees, the how many degrees it measures. Okay, so in your calculator, this is what you're going to put. The first thing that you put, and that's for the type of calculators that go with mine. I know that there are some that are different. I'll show you how to do that too. Not show you, but write it down. So you're going to put the ratio. You're going to put second key, because if you notice, you have a second, and then for the ratio, look at the inverse are back there behind the key. Okay, so that's why I need to press the second key. So it means use the second function of that key. So second, and then I'm gonna press sine, which gives me the inverse sine. And that's all you have to do basically. So my x is gonna be equal to, so I have the ratio already, which it already gave it to me by finding it here. I put second, and the sine gives me the inverse of sine, which is gonna be 53 degrees. I'm gonna ask you that for the degrees, you round to the nearest whole number. And it's because if you look at a protractor, I'm sorry, I was gonna say the word in Spanish. If you look at the protractor, the degrees are so tiny. They're about this big. And if you put decimals, it means that you're gonna divide that into 10 little sections, and we don't want to do that small. So degrees, just round to the nearest whole, please. Okay, for other calculators, you're going to press, let's see if I remember, is the second or shift, okay, either one of those, second or shift, and then you're going to press sine, which is going to give you the inverse of sine. Then you're going to press the ratio, 0.8 or just 0.8, and then you're going to close parentheses and then equal. Okay, so try this one. Which one gives you 53? That's the path that you're going to have to use for the rest of this assignment, for depending on your calculator. Okay, so let's do, oh, I keep knocking this. Sorry about that. Let's do another one. Don't forget SOHCAHTOA, SOHCAHTOA, SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA, SOHCAHTOA, SOHCAHTOA. Okay, so in here, what do I have? I have opposite, I have hypotenuse. Opposite and hypotenuse is sine. Okay, so I'm going to put sine of x. Since I have these ratios already, I'm not going to write. But if you want to have more practice, put sine of theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. I should do it maybe. Sine of theta is equals to opposite. The more you write it, the more you remember it. Over hypotenuse. And so in here, sine of x is opposite is 1, hypotenuse is 4. I find this ratio by dividing 1 divided by 4. It's one of those that you should know. Try to remember as many as you can in small fractions. And so I'm going to put the inverse of sine times that ratio that I found. Okay, 0.25. It's going to give me the angle measurements. And so what is that angle measurement? Well, let's look in our calculators. Remember, for mine it's kind of like backwards, but this negative makes me go to the second key. So it's 0.25, second key for sine, and that's it. You get 14, yeah, it doesn't round down, so it's gonna be 14 degrees. Okay, so that's how many degrees that angle is. 14 degrees. Again, what did I press? First of all, I found the ratio, right? I divided the ratio, and that ratio, I put it in my calculator, so 0.25, second key, and then sine, which gives me, by pressing the second, it gives me the sine inverse. Other calculators will be second key or shift, sine, which is the negative, then the ratio. Were you not looking? Oops, sorry. So second, the inverse, the ratio, close parentheses, and equal. Okay, so again, second key, just because you want that sine, that, the ratio, and then close parentheses and equal. So basically, some calculators go in the correct order. Mine goes backwards. Okay, let's do some more. In here, what do I have? I have, it's not opposite. Look in here. When I go and look at the opposite and I see emptiness, that means I can eliminate the opposite and the opposite. Right there. So I know that I'm going to be using cosine. Why? Because I don't have anything of the opposite. So I'm going to be using adjacent and hypotenuse. And if you still are having trouble figuring out how to find the adjacent is attached to the angle, but it's not the hypotenuse. Okay? Attached to the angle is the hypotenuse and the adjacent angle. And the opposite is straight up, opposite of it, straight in front. So cosine is equals to, hypotenuse is always in the denominator, so cosine of theta is equals to adjacent over hypotenuse. So hypotenuse, you notice that it's always in the denominator. So if you know how to identify that and you're using the either sine or cosine, you can just identify it and put it down here. Then you know that the 3 is the adjacent one. Remember, 3 divided by 4 is 0.75, but if you're not sure, you can just use your calculator. It's one of those that we should know, 0.75. And so, remember that we're going to put the cosine inverse of 0.75 will give me the angle of x. What am I doing is basically switching these ones, right? The x goes to the end to give me the degrees, and the ratio goes right next to the cosine, but now the inverse. And so I'm going to press second cosine, and x is 41 degree. Okay, so what did I press? 0.75, second key, and that gives me the cosine of, the inverse of cosine. For you, it might be first, second, then cosine, and then the angle. So basically, this just goes to here, and you close parentheses and equal. Okay, it's the only difference. See, second and cosine. Then you press the ratio in decimal form, close parentheses, and equal. Okay, it's the only difference between the two calculators. They switch a little bit its order, that's all. Okay, I'm gonna go a little faster. Again, I don't have opposite. That means that I can eliminate these two because those both have opposite. So it's going to be cosine of x is equals to, oh, I forgot that the ratio again. Cosine of theta, which this SOHCAHTOA gives me. Cosine equals adjacent over hypotenuse. And the adjacent, what is the adjacent? Which one of the two is the adjacent? Well, in here you can really, I didn't even drew the 90-degree angles, but you can see that this is the corner. So that's the longest side also. That's another way to see it. That's the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse goes always in the denominator. That makes it easier. Okay? And the 10 goes on top because it's the adjacent. Remember, the adjacent is attached to the angle. Adjacent, attached. And the other way to identify the adjacent is that it's always between the angle and the 90-degree angle. Okay, two different ways to figure it out. Okay, now I go to the calculator. 10 divided by 11 gives me 0.90, 90, 90, 90. I told you to use at least 4 digits. So since that's a 0, you might just get rid of that 0 or add another 9. It's up to you. So now, remember that we switched these ones. So it's going to be cosine, but inverse of 0.909 equals, that goes to the other side. And basically this is just ignore because that's that basically, okay? And so the x goes here. And what is the value of x? Well, just put, notice that after I divide it, I just leave it there because it's like what I put the ratio, then the second and cosine, which gives me, I'm gonna round up to 25 degrees. Okay, so I put this, then the second key to get this one, and then cosine, and that's it. You get the answer. Okay, I have 2 more examples for you. I'm not gonna write down the calculator form. I hope you already got the hang of it. If not, you can come during lunch to see it, to ask me, I'm sorry. Okay, so what do I have here? This is the angle. I have opposite. That's the easiest one for me to identify. And I'm able to identify hypotenuse. I don't have hypotenuse. So that means I can get rid of these 2 because these both require hypotenuse. So which one is it going to be? TOA. So tangent of theta is equals to opposite over adjacent. And I already said that I'm able to identify opposite easier, okay, than the adjacent. So the opposite is always right in front. So tangent of x is equals to opposite is right in front over adjacent, which is 7. And 5 divided by 7 equals 0.7143. I'm gonna round to 7143. 0.7143. Remember this switch order. Okay, so it's gonna be, but now that inverse of tan is equals to, oh no, inverse of tan of 0.7143 equals the degrees of the angle. So I have that, and you might put 0.7143, second key, and then tangent. Okay, so the value of x is equal to, since I'm rounding to the nearest whole, it's going to be 36 degrees. Okay, so that's the answer. One last example. The only difference is that I'm pressing tan instead in here, okay? So, but it's the same order. This, then second key, and then tan. If you're using the other one, it will be second key, tan, the ratio in decimal form, close parentheses, and equal. Okay? Oh, somehow I feel like I need to write it, so I'm sorry. So it's gonna be, for mine, 0.7143, second key, and tan, and it gives me the inverse, and that's it. For the other one is second key or shift, whoops, tan, inverse, the decimal, which is 0, it doesn't matter if you put the 0 or not, 7143, close parentheses, and equal. Sorry, I just had to come back. Okay, pause the video if you need to see that. And for this one, what do I have? The longest side I don't have, so I think that might be easier to eliminate the ones that have the missing part. So I don't have any information on this bigger one, hypotenuse, so these are eliminated. That means that I'm gonna use tangent again. So tangent of theta is equals to opposite over adjacent. It doesn't matter if you put lowercase or uppercase. So tangent of x is equal to opposite, is always right in front, over adjacent, which is between the angle and the 90-degree angle. In decimal form, this gives me 1 divided by 11 equals 0.0909. Okay, 09090909. So the inverse of tangent of 0.0909, it should give me the degrees of the angle. So I put this in my calculator, 0.0909. I put second and the inverse of tan, and that gives me the answer. Okay, oh, I just had it. 0.0909 second tangent, and so that's 5 degrees. Okay, 5 degrees. So that's it. You are able to work now on 6.5, but just let me just give you, if you have the other calculator, you're gonna press second inverse of tan of 0.0909, close parentheses, and equal. And so now you can have fun with SOHCAHTOA, SOHCAHTOA, SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA, SOHCAHTOA, SOHCAHTOA.